The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 33. Master Tang does evil and can't escape from it. Eunuch Wang could not afford not to put on a good face right now. After recommending Tang Fan last night, he had already tied him to his own boat. If the other caused any sort of situation that gave him a hard time, then he, as the endorser, would inevitably bear the blame alongside him. Moreover, he knew that Shang Ming was watching at the sidelines, waiting to laugh at him. The Western Depot had only recently been established and not been operating for very long. It couldn't compare to the Eastern Depot's illustrious history, but it was still 100% in high demand. Who didn't want to stand on equal grounds with the Eastern Depot, having countless underlings under them, getting their presence announced wherever they went and grasping immense power? Even middling officials like Liang Fang longingly eyed and drooled over the Western Depot. Despite having Consort Wan as a supporter, Wang Zhi still needed to take precautions. From the very beginning of this case, Consort Wan had summoned him into the palace for a face-to-face meeting, then asked him how this should be handled. He had immediately brought Tang Fan to mind. Eunuch Wang was acquainted with a lot of officials and also had many people at his command that would be willing to follow him and serve at his command. However, when it came to investigating and judging cases, Tang Fan seemed to be the most reliable out of all the people he knew. Based on the idea the man had given him through Pan Bin, he decided that he was quite clever, capable, sly, and adaptable. He ought to have been somewhat like Lu Ji. The situation had been pressing, so in his haste, Wang Zhi didn't have time to consult with Tang Fan before he recommended him. He thought to himself that the latter was smart and would presumably be able to grasp the crux of this case speedily without any sort of mistake. Unexpectedly, the man might have seemed sly and adaptable, but in actuality, he was rough and rigid. First, he had made that preemptive strike in front of the emperor and consort Wan, scaring Wang Zhi into a full-body cold sweat. Then, he had left him with such words that caused Wang Zhi to sleep poorly the whole night after he returned. With regret in his heart, Eunuch Wang felt like he had completely misunderstood the man. Yet, what was done was done. There was no way that he could run back to the emperor and declare that he had suggested the wrong person, then swap him out for a new one. All he could do now was suck it up, came over to greet Tang Fan and scout out talk on the wind, so that he could avoid Tang Fan making a mistake at some point that would end up with him being dragged down into the water with him. Wang Zhi ignored Bianyu's wide-eyed look. He simply clapped Tang Fan on the shoulder and beamed at him as he replied, "I slept fine, of course." As he talked, he pressed that shoulder and urged him to walk forward with him. Tang Fan thought to himself that Eunuch Wang's strength was considerable, almost the same as Sui Zhou's. With a tug and a pull, he couldn't resist at all. Once Wang Zhi and him had their backs turned to the rest of them, his expression sank. "Tang Runking, this eunuch will warn you kindly. This matter is one of great importance, and if you find anything out, you have to keep me up to date at all times. By no means should you make an assertion without permission, else your cause of death will be unknown when the time comes. His Majesty is soft-hearted and doesn't like killing people, but it isn't like there aren't exceptions." Tang Fan smiled. "You think rather too highly of me. I'm just an insignificant prefect. How could I influence the overall situation? Furthermore, nothing has taken shape yet. What are the true facts of the matter are difficult to speak of. Since you've already stated that this isn't the consort's doing, why are you so tense?" Wang Zhi made his voice even lower. "Quit playing dumb. If it weren't for your suggestion of getting in good terms with the East Palace, why would I have made you come over? I'll be brief by throwing this statement out for you here: the murderer mustn't be the consort, nor the one in the East Palace." Tang Fan shook his head. "There's no need for baseless fears, Eunuch Wang. As I see it, the East Palace has no relation to this." Wang Zhi looked at him skeptically. "Really? When I was in the Imperial Hanlin Academy, I had once read an essay written by the Crown Prince," Tang Fan patiently explained. He had only just started his studies, so his writing style was immature but not worth a sneer. However, and as the saying goes, how one write is a reflection of the writer. He is young and was not good at concealing his intentions. If he harbored malice, it would certainly come out between his words. But from what I saw, whether it was the essay or copied characters, each and every stroke revealed his self, honest, stable, and somewhat gentle. I was clear on him being a similarly soft-hearted, open-natured individual that doesn't blame the gods and others for the roughness of his childhood, nor someone who conceal a malicious mind. Someone like that is quite unlikely to use the life of his companion to frame Consort Wan. She's truly overthinking this. The other had to breathe out a sigh of relief. If your words are true, that would be for the best. Tang Fan laughed. What good would it do me to lie to you? The country having a wise ruler thus means the land has great fortune. If that were not the case, why would I have suggested that you get close to the East Palace? In the Great Ming, the majority of civil officials truthfully didn't think too much of eunuchs in their mind, even if they had to deal with them. Even a famous one might not get any more space in the history books than a mediocre civil official. They demanded a much higher standards from the eunuchs compared to themselves. Should the eunuch had a bit of power and took some rash actions, they would be awarded with the title of corrupt eunuch. Tang Fan held a slightly different opinion, however. As a civil official himself, he knew that being a greedy or corrupt official wasn't hard. Look for an opportunity and seize it, but not too much of it, stand on the correct spot at critical moments, and don't oppose the emperor. Stick to that route. Keep going down that path and one would drift into a retirement full of glory. Being a clean or upright official wasn't hard, either. No matter how righteous someone was, put them in no regard, and when you learn that someone was corrupt, scold them for it, even if they were the emperor. Do not let him slip past. Berate them until you got banished or be sent to prison was best, so that your name would get passed down through the ages. Now, being an official that wanted to get real things done, that was beyond hard. The greater number of your colleagues above, below, and around you did absolutely nothing. What could a single person do? Nothing, other than uniting those that could be united and not making very defined dividing lines between good and bad people. So long as someone was capable of work, or capable of helping you in work, they could be made friends with. In light of that criteria, Wang Zhi actually wasn't too bad. He also wanted to accomplish things that weren't too bad. It was simply that a eunuch's status was quite confined, and because of his overbearing nature, he had pulled a good number of officials off of their steeds during his control of the Western Depot and thus created his poor reputation. For that reason, Tang Fan had given him that plan in the hopes that it could cause him to use his power for more productive matters and not set the entirety of his mind on eliminating dissidents or scheming against the likes of Shang Ming all the while. Eunuchs ought to have goals befitting their stations. He was happy that Wang Zhi had listened to him. What was unfortunate was that the plan for Wang Zhi had hit Tang Fan on his own head. One that did evil could not escape from it. Tang Fan was beyond helpless. With no way to deal with eunuch Wang's nagging, he had no choice but to tell him his foremost analysis of the crowned prince. Wang Zhi was finally appeased. After realizing that Tang Fan didn't have any intention of picking a fight against him, his expression turned from mostly cloudy to clear weather. Who do you think the killer is, then? The investigation barely begun and I'm not a god. How should I know? Tang Fan answered, vexed. Even what I said just now had only been my own personal judgment. It could only be used as a supplement to the case's details, at most. After all, everything needs to have evidence. Wang Zhi chuckled and said, if you successfully find out the truth, I guarantee that I'll put in a good word for you before His Majesty and the consort. Your rank will definitely get brought up then. Tang Fan sighed. Whether my rank gets mentioned or not is secondary. I only request that you show mercy to me, Eunuch Wang, and not put things onto my head without prior discussion. The other nodded and said, fine. Next time I'll inform you ahead of time. Finally feeling at ease, Wang Zhi's feminine and pretty face consequently appeared even more maiden-like. Tang Fan, who had just experienced his strength, would absolutely never regard him as soft like most eunuchs. Not too much of this case should be disclosed in accordance to its special nature, but when eunuch Wang looked at Suizhou, he didn't begrudge him the fact that he was from the Jinyiwei. Instead, he gave Tang Fan a suggestive smile and said, "I heard that you and General Sui Beihu were good friends and were even sharing the same house. The rumors were truly not wrong. Why, you're even going on assignments together. What did he meant by staying in the same house?" The more Tang Fan heard, the more he felt something was off. Rent is expensive in the capital. It just so happened that brother Sui lived alone in his home, so he invited me and my little sister to come live with him, he promptly clarified. The present case is special and I can't call on the Shuntian prefecture bailiffs for this, which is why I shamelessly asked that he lend a hand. Fortunately, he's a loyal friend, and didn't reject my request. I really can't thank him enough for his kindness. Wang Zhi made an O, dragging the sound out for a very long time with face full of ambiguity. Unsure of what the other was being ambiguous about, Tang Fan heard him continued, "I also have a vacant house in the capital. If you don't hate the idea, Runking, you could move there. Then there would be no need to inconvenience General Sui Beihu so." Tang Fan, of course, rejected this without even thinking about it. "Many thanks for your generosity, eunuch Wang. I am lazy by nature and don't feel like moving, so I won't trouble you." What a joke. Making friends with an imperial eunuch was one thing, staying in said eunuch's house was of a completely different matter. Smiling widely, Wang Zhi said that it was a shame but didn't insist. Turning to BNU, he said, "For this matter, you and the people under you, will obey Master Tang's orders. When he needs something, do all that you can to meet it. If the scope of your power falls short, come let me know." BNU was not an average bailiff. The eastern and western depots had the same organizational structures. Under the chief eunuch were 12 squad leaders arranged on the basis of the 12 shishans of the day, rat, ox, tiger, hare, and so on. BNU was the leader of the hare squad, able to directly report the situations to Wang Zhi. Wang Zhi had already given this order previously, but now that he was repeating it in Tang Fan's presence, its significance was even more out of the ordinary. BNU had no idea what Wang Zhi and Tang Fan had spoken of in private, solely witnessing Wang Zhi, who never respected anyone, have a nice and amiable attitude towards Tang Fan. The two even seemed to share a close relationship which unsurprisingly, blew his mind. Once Wang Zhi was gone, the degree of BNU's cordiality towards Tang Fan immediately reached a new height, manifesting in an overpowering attitude of allowing him to do whatever it was he wanted to do. Tang Fan wasn't overly polite about it, either. Soon, he was asked to bring them for a visit to the palace maid that had delivered the soup. On account of her being someone from Consort Wan's side, the maid didn't suffer any sort of torture and merely being imprisoned in a small room where her food and daily living was taken care of. The mental torment of all this was plenty enough for her, however. After learning that Han Zhao had died after drinking the sweet soup she had delivered, she had constantly been in a state of disturbed anxiety. As soon as she saw Tang Fan's group, she immediately knelt down, wailing bitterly as she shouted about how she had been accused unjustly. "Stop crying," the nearby warden shouted to cut her off. Like her throat had been grabbed, she promptly lost her voice, only looking at them pitifully with her big eyes. "Don't be nervous," Tang Fan said. "I've been given the royal decree to investigate this case. If you're free of blame, then you'll be considered innocent. I'm going to ask you a few things, so you must answer them truthfully, understand?" She nodded over and over. "What's your name?" "Furu." "This maid is called Furu. I must ask you, Furu, did you deliver those 2 bowls of soup to the crowned prince under orders of Consort Wan?" "Yes." "Had she ever sent food to him prior to that?" No. Since it hadn't happened before, why would she suddenly do so? State completely the details of the situation and the entire process. If you cover anything up, I won't be able to help you. Furu collected herself, then organized her words. It went like this: the consort heard that the Empress Dowager sent the prince food daily, and also heard that he liked to drink mung bean lily soup, so she sent me to do the same. I had urged her not to, but she kept insisting it be sent. What did you say to her at the time? I said to her that the crowned prince already remembers and likely hasn't forgotten his birth mother. He isn't close to her at all, so why should she incur people's suspicions like this? If anything happens to him, everyone will probably blame her. But she said he is the established crowned prince. All the others are scrambling to fawn on him while she was the only one who was ignoring him. She said that His Majesty told her the other day that she shouldn't be estranged from him. So, she was doing it for His Majesty's sake lest it be said that she was an intolerant consort. And then, she had the kitchen make the soup and sent me to deliver 2 bowls. The soup was cooked in the kitchen in her palace, not the communal that is used by everyone in the main one. Her own food all comes from there. The soup had also been picked up by me, never switching hands the whole way, so there's certainly no issue there. He asked nothing else, consoled her a bit, then left with the others. Han Zhao's body is here, as well. Would you like to take a look, Master Tang? Bianyu asked of his own accord. Tang Fan looked at Suizhou, first. Guangchuan, I'll trouble you to go with Brother Bian to look at it. I'll go into the palace and get the physician that had taken Han Zhao's pulse and examined him before. Suizhou nodded. Go on. With Tang Fan's rank and status, it would be a total impossibility for him to enter the Forbidden City at will in ordinary times. Yet, after being summoned by Emperor Chenghua last night, Wang Zhi had given him a token of command to be used for his convenience during investigation. Otherwise too much time would get wasted from the layers of reports getting made every time he put petition to go in. By coincidence, when Tang Fan got to the Imperial Hospital and asked, the very doctor soon that had the checked up pulses of the Empress Dowager, the Crowned Prince and Han Zhao in passing also happened to be the same doctor that had rushed to the scene for inspection when Han Zhao died. In addition to that, he was even on duty that day, which saved Tang Fan the effort of running back and forth. After hearing what Tang Fan has to say, Dr. Soon sighed and said, it was truly unexpected. When I first took young Master Han's pulse, he was clearly healthy without a hint of ailment. Who could have thought that he would die like this? Then, when I came over that day, he was still faintly breathing, but it was unfortunately too late. It would have simply been impossible to prescribe the right medication in such a short amount of time. Also, I'm no coroner, nor can I examine the dead, so I couldn't make out anything strange. Even so, I still have to trouble you to take a trip with me. You were the earliest to arrive, after all. There may yet be some particulars that we haven't discovered and will need your help deducing. Dr. Soon was more than willing and energetically agreed. Then I shall. Although I couldn't save little young Master Han, if I can contribute all of my humble efforts, my conscience will be somewhat reassured. Tang Fan led him out of the palace. The man was getting on in age and wouldn't be able to walk the rest of the way. So, they hired a sedan and hurried straight out of the palace gates to the western depot. On Suizhou's end, he was in the middle of inspecting the body alongside the depot's coroner. Noticing their arrival, he only slightly looked up and said one phrase, didn't find anything. Tang Fan was slightly disappointed, but still asked, you already checked all over? Young Master Han has neither wounds nor bruises on his body, so it wasn't death by blunt force trauma, the coroner explained. What if he was poisoned? May I be so bold as to ask whether you're asking after quick-acting poison or one that has been administered for years? If it's poison, it should be highly toxic and fast-acting, Dr. Soon supplied. Back when Han Zhao had fallen to the ground and complained that his stomach was hurting, an East Palace attendant had run off to call for a doctor. However, even when Dr. Sun had hurriedly come over, Han Zhao died shortly after. The time between his collapse and the doctor's arrival had been less than half of a shishan, which was why the doctor judged it like so. The coroner shook his head and said, "That makes even less sense. If he had died suddenly from long-term poisoning, there would still be marks of it left behind even if there are no injuries, the whole body being black and blue, for example, or bruises under the nails, puffiness around the eyes, and so on. Looking at the body, though, there's really no evidence of this." Going along with the coroner's words, Tang Fan carefully examined the corpse. Indeed, he couldn't see any indication of that. The profession of coroner was passed down through particular experience and apprenticeship, and the quality of the depot's coroner was assuredly much higher than that of the Shuntian prefecture. Tang Fan didn't doubt the authenticity of his verdict. If he said it couldn't be validated, then it couldn't be validated. Since it hadn't been a sudden illness, nor were there traces of poisoning, that only further demonstrated the killer's cunning and exceedingly brilliant imagination. Cases like this were always the most headache-inducing to officials and were liable to end up placed as a pending case, or cause a random person to get arrested so that they could close the case for the sake of the official's career review. However, because all persons involved in this case were all high-profile, even if there was no outline to be had, a trail still needed to be found, and even if there was no path, it still needed to be stepped upon. "Shave his hair away and take a look," Sui Zhou suddenly said. "If there's nothing, dissect him." Tang Fan understood him. Sui Zhou must have remembered his experience in the Marquis estate of Wuan's case when they had found a dent at the top of Zheng Cheng's head, since most average people wouldn't pay attention to an area covered by hair. During autopsies, anything goes, and the depot had forever used many methods to do them, but in consideration of the identity of the one in question, BNU hesitated. That wouldn't be a good idea, right? What if the Han family refuses to? Tang Fan thought for a bit and said, "Shaving the head beforehand is fine. Things as they are now, there's only one goal. Everything else can be discussed later. If any issue came up with the Han family, I will handle it." With those words, BNU didn't say anything further, directly ordering someone to bring a razor. The coroner brandished it himself. Its edge was seriously sharp, and in a quick few turns, strand by strand came off until Han Zhao had a bald head. One's body came of the flesh of one's parents. Even if the one in question was dead, this was still awful. As Dr. Sun watched Sui Zhou and Tang Fan set to task of feeling about Han Zhao's head, the corners of his lips pulled down. He turned away, unable to bear looking any longer. At this instant, he heard Tang Fan gasp and couldn't help but turn back to look. He then saw him stooping in close, pointing at the spot of the anterior fontanelle. "There looks to be a little red here. Did the razor accidentally nick him just then?" "No, this lowly one shaved it very carefully," the coroner answered. "Moreover, he's already dead." The coroner came in closer for a look, and was somewhat bewildered. "Why does it look like there's a slight contusion there?" After that, he reached out and felt it. "But there's no injury at all." "Wait. No one move." Dr. Sun suddenly called out. His voice was so loud, it made everyone turn and look at him at the same time. A little embarrassed, he quickly walked over. Without paying attention to hygiene, he felt the area for a spell, then narrowed his old eyes in scrutiny. "A contusion, a contusion." He mumbled on and on. Tang Fan couldn't help but ask, "Have you realized something, Lao Sun?" Dr. Sun nodded, then shook his head. Wait a minute. Seeing him being like that, the others all paused in their movements, watching him feeling about and deliberating. They saw his hand descend from Han Zhao's fontanelle, then go down his forehead, jaw, neck, and sternum to ultimately stop a cun above his navel. After that, everyone observed as he leaned over and took a careful look. As he slowly pressed on it, his expression went from calm and serious to shocked and enraged, fluctuating without cease while he mumbled, "That really is it. It really is. What did you find, Lao Sun?" Tang Fan asked. The doctor beckoned him over. "Come take a look, Master Tang." Tang Fan walked over and Dr. Sun pointed out with a hand to have him use his own and feel at the spot, copying him mechanically. Tang Fan didn't understand his reasoning, but still went along with it. Han Zhao had been dead for a day and a night, so his body had since gone stiff and lost elasticity. Even like that, though, once Tang Fan pressed down, he felt something off. Something was underneath. He looked at Dr. Sun, who nodded. "It feels like a half needle, but it needs to be extracted to know for sure." The coroner took over, touching the spot Dr. Sun had indicated. Soon after, he took out a small, sharp knife, then carefully made an incision. The skin split apart, but no blood flowed out. The coroner swiftly pulled out the strange object using tweezers. Taking a closer look, they all couldn't help but be surprised. It was a silver needle not even half a kun long, and could be described as the width of a mere hair. It was very thin, so small that it would be very hard to see if it got dropped onto the floor. Yet, such a needle had shown up in Han Zhao's abdomen, which was way too odd. Dr. Sun sighed. Cruel. Truly cruel. Doctors have the hearts of parents, so how could one be cruel enough to think up such a way to kill someone? Old son, can you explain what you mean? Tang Fan quickly asked. Basically, when a needle of this thinness and shortness got stuck into someone's body, they might not feel a thing but a faint pain of being pricked at most. How could it have been used for a murder plot? Furthermore, what relationship did the needle have with the contusion at Han Zhao's anterior fontanelle? And how could Dr. Sun notice the abnormality with that contusion, then follow the melon vine down to find the needle? End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 34. They're done for. Dr. Sun pointed at the spot the needle had just been taken out of. There's an acupuncture point here called Shufan. As stated in the Northern Song's bronze figures, if there's edema, moxibustion is very effective. Use 7 to 100 moxa, no more. Do not stick with a needle as hitting the fluid inside will prompt death. For that reason, it has been claimed that only moxibustion can be used on it and not acupuncture, but the truth is that needle can be used, too. It's just that some are unskilled at the craft and tend to stick the needle in too deep, leading to tragedy. Tang Fan and the rest understood in an instant. Every single acupuncture point on the human body had a use like the shufan. Massaging it with the fingers or perform moxibustion on it could treat symptoms of edema, diarrhea, and the likes. On the other hand, it was also a major acupuncture point like the Beihui and the Taiyang, so if the treatment was done right, damage could be caused to the body. Shufan belongs to the Ren meridian and happens to share a channel with the anterior fontanelle, Dr. Sun provided. When a needle punctures it, a contusion appears on the fontanelle. Previously, I had only heard my teacher speak of it, so if I hadn't seen it myself today, I would have never believed that someone could actually come up with such a way to cause suffering. This individual is certain to be familiar with medical scriptures and might even be a physician, but their skill wasn't used to save someone, but to kill them. How infuriating. Dr. Sun remained enraged with how the murderer carried out the crime while everyone else became grave. They had believed that Han Zhao had died of poison, not at all expecting that a needle would be in a key acupuncture point of his. With how covert the method of killing was, if it weren't for Dr. Sun being present today and able to recognize the intricate connection between Shufan acupuncture point and the anterior fontanelle, they likely wouldn't have found the problem even if they had dissected the corpse, let alone from shaving just the head. Due to the needle's small size plus their previous concentration on poison, they would have only gone for the larynx and the chest if they had ended up doing the dissection and not take note of the Shufan spot at all. If Han Zhao had a broken needle piece in his body, would checking his pulse reveal that? Tang Fan asked. Understanding what he was getting at, Dr. Sun shook his head. It would have been impossible to maintain it that long. When I checked on him a few days back, he was confirmed healthy, which is to say that the onset time would have been very fast. The needle is small and short, but in that particular appointment, the time period for the incident definitely couldn't exceed half of a day. Tang Fan was mystified. What you're saying is that Han Zhao's needle had been stuck in him that very day, but if that's the case, he wasn't a baby that couldn't speak. How could he not feel it at all when it happened? There's a couple of reasons for that. 1. The needle is thinner than in the normal acupuncture needles. When an ox hair thin object like this pierces the body, one may not get a very prominent sensation of it. Another is that the needle was broken and was completely concealed within the body. If Han Zhao didn't know about it himself, others would only take it as a normal abdominal pain. The way he died was so unusual that few would put two and two together. Suizhou picked up where Dr. Sun left off. Using me as an example, I could easily stick that needle through clothes and into someone else's body without them noticing. If the one in question is a naive child who is not on alert, it would be even easier. Hearing all that, Tang Fan's brow creased. In that case, the issue now pertains to who came into close contact with him on the day of his death. They are most likely someone he knew, otherwise it would be impossible for them to get close enough to stick that needle in. This matter was now beyond Dr. Sun's sphere of expertise, as it entailed a broad variety of fields and possibly involved a public figure in the palace beyond that. Not wanting to give him a hard time, Tang Fan had Bian get someone to send Dr. Sun back. As I recall, Tang Fan said to Suizhou, Han Zhao had entered the palace at daybreak at the time of the rabbit, 5 to 7 a.m. At around 10 minutes into the time of the dragon, 7 to 9 a.m., the Empress Dowager sent bamboo shoot pastries over. At 20 minutes in, Consort Wan sent the mung bean lily soup over. At 40 minutes, Han Zhao said his stomach hurt, then died suddenly. In other words, taking the start of the time of the rabbit as the beginning point, the time period is altogether that whole Shishan, plus about 40 minutes. Wrong. There's also the time before he got up in the morning and left, Suizhou pointed out. Tang Fan thought about this. You mean that the Han family is also a suspect in this? I've handled a lot of cases before. It often ends up being someone who is the least inconspicuous. This is just to ensure we cover everything and add another possibility. Tang Fan nodded and said, typically, getting up, freshening up and getting ready to go to the palace happens at the time of the tiger, 3 to 5 a.m. Lao Sun also said that with the Shufan appointment punctured, it would get deeper into the body in the wake of motion, making the onset period quicker. It can't be any longer than those 2 Shishans plus 40 minutes. At this moment, someone from the East Palace came in from the outside, saying that His Highness, the Crowned Prince wanted to see Sir Tang. Tang Fan wasn't surprised. Even if the Crowned Prince hadn't gone looking for him, he would have gone looking for the prince, himself. On account of last night's experience, he didn't feel much upon going into the palace again. Also, his brain was currently full of clues on the East Palace case, so he didn't care to look much at the palace scenery, either. He had seen the Crowned Prince last night as well, but it was naturally a lot easier to observe him during the daytime. He had just turned 8 this year, but in order to keep out of Consort Wan's sight when he was younger, he had to hide all over the place in the palace, and all the food he ate was taken from the maids' and eunuchs' rations, resulting in his body developing frail. He only looked about 5 or 6 years old. The East Palace robes he wore being somewhat distressing in their looseness. Despite his birth not being one of extravagance, it could be seen that he was extremely diligent and worked hard, his etiquette and mannerisms both up to standards, not a nit to be picked. After Tang Fan's bow, the Crowned Prince immediately ordered, "Come, move a chair over for Prefect Tang. Grant him a seat and serve him tea." Many thanks to your highness for your consideration. This subject is fine withstanding, Tang Fan rejected. You are handling a case for Father Emperor and thus bear an imperial mission. There's no need to be polite. Tang Fan was no longer courteous, thanking him as he sat. Have you discovered anything about the case, Prefect Tang? He had only been casually asking this. Since it had been no more than a day, what could he have found this early? He was not expecting to hear the reply that he got. I indeed have. Tang Fan explained Han Zhao's cause of death. The prince's eyes went wide and he couldn't help but stand up from his seat. How could that be? How? This is too cruel to Xiao Zhao. Regardless of how restrained and hard-working he was still just an 8-year-old child. He had experienced all sorts of hardships since birth, but upon hearing that his young companion who had just been with him the previous day had tragically died, he couldn't hold back his tears. Prefect Tang, have you found out who is responsible for killing him? While he spoke, Tang Fan was attentively observing him. One's words and mannerisms could not be used as solid proof, but they could be used for supplement and reference. The amount of suffering the crowned prince had endured in his childhood was more than that of an average person. He had faced death threats at all times, so he was forced to follow his devoted maids and attendants in relocating all over the place to avoid Consort Wan's persecution. That all might have been an overly contrived plot when placed in fantasy stories, but in the Chenghua court, they had been real events. His birth mother, Lady Ji, had died suddenly 3 years back, the same year he was made the crowned prince. At that time, no one had jumped out to call for a thorough investigation of it, as they all tacitly understood the truth and believed that he wouldn't take it to mind since he was so young back then. But how could a child who had been forced to mature early not know what his own mother has suffered from? How could a palace full of gossip not reach his ears? In spite of enduring so much hardship in life, the crowned prince didn't become depressed. On the contrary, he was giving off a peaceful, gentle vitality. His eyes were so clear, one could see their bottom and how they were not contaminated at all by the filthy complexities of the world. Tang Fan had also experienced many vicissitudes of life and people's hearts for himself. From his observation, the way the crowned prince reacted upon learning of Han Zhao's true fate ought to lend credit to the fact that he has nothing to do with this case. At the very least, it wasn't like how Consort Wan suspected that he was deliberately framing her in the name of revenge. Whenever a villain saw someone noble, they would forever judge the noble's mind based on their own villainous heart. They wouldn't understand what the noble was thinking or how his thought process works. He shook his head and said, as of now, we have only managed to determine the cause of death. Even if you had not come looking for this subject, Your Highness, I was getting ready to come over and request an audience with you. I would like to know, from the time he had entered the palace until the time of his death, what had Han Zhao had done and who had he met? The crowned prince blinked, dumbstruck for a good minute, then just shook his head. No one. He had been studying with me the whole time and never went anywhere else. Tang Fan was both annoyed and amused. At a glance, he could tell that His Highness was not great at lying. Are you telling the truth, Your Highness? This is a highly important matter. If the culprit wasn't merely aiming at Han Zhao, but rather had some other intentions, I'm afraid that you'll also be in danger. The crowned prince went quiet. Tang Fan resolved to compel him. If you refuse to speak truthfully, this subject will have no choice but to go and ask for His Majesty's presence. That said, he got up, cupped his hands and moved to leave. The crowned prince swiftly called out to stop him, even forgetting himself in order to chase after him. Don't go, don't go. Wait. Tang Fan turned around. The boy bit his lower lip. I can tell you, but that person would never harm me, and Xiao Zhao even less so. You have to promise me that you will never let Father Emperor know. Tang Fan nodded. Given that they have nothing to do with this case, nor the murderer, I of course won't look deeply into them. The prince didn't make a sound, standing there in hesitation. Tang Fan waited with his sleeves gathered, not rushing him. A good minute later, the crowned prince dismissed his attendants and then said to Tang Fan, after Xiao Zhao entered the palace at the time of the rabbit, we were studying in one place, and then I had him go somewhere to see someone part way through. A round trip there is only less than half a shishan and that person would never hurt him, or me. Who are they? Lady Wu. Tang Fan didn't realize for a second. Which Lady Wu? The one that's Father Emperor's first empress. Oh, that Empress Wu. Tang Fan remembered that she had been deposed by the current Son of Heaven because she had reproached Consort Wan, thereupon entering the West Palace. Following that, her name was seldom heard either inside or outside the palace. The woman seemed to have been completely forgotten in the minds of all. Lady Wu lives in the West Palace. There's often lack of food and supply there. It's difficult for me to go there myself, but Xiao Zhao was young and had a special identity, so no one would bother to interrogate him. That's why I would sometimes ask him to go deliver things. With how clever Tang Fan was, he understood with that bit of indication. Has she helped you before? The crowned prince said nothing, dark eyes peering at him accusatorily. Be at ease, your highness. This subject will not tell one word about things unrelated to the case, Tang Fan said warmly. I'll treat it as if I've never heard it. However, I will still need to take a trip to the West Palace. The boy grew anxious. You can't. When Father Emperor learns about where you went, the consort will definitely know, too. If they ask you why you went asking for her, what happened in the past will get brought up again, and then the consort won't let Lady Wu go free. Then I'll say that Han Zhao loved to fool around and had taken advantage of an opportunity midway through studying to slip out to play, so I need to investigate all the routes he might have taken. At that point, not only will I visit the West Palace but everywhere nearby. If Empress Wu is unrelated to this, Consort Wan will naturally not suspect that she had fostered and helped you before. How about that? The crowned prince's mouth was slightly opened as he looked at him in disbelief, like he couldn't believe that a subject would discuss deceiving the monarch right to his face. Tang Fan smiled some. This isn't about deceiving a monarch, it's just a bit of accommodation for the circumstances. I'm taking you into consideration, your highness, so I have to ask that you keep this quiet for me. Aren't you afraid of offending the consort? Nowadays, no one in the whole court dares to offend her. Why aren't you afraid? It isn't that this subject isn't afraid, but that a noble is defined by what they do and don't do. Empress Wu's benevolent act in aiding you has nothing to do with this case and should be kept a secret. There's no one in this world that deserves retribution because they committed a good deed. I'm investigating for the sake of finding the killer, not to cause those good people to suffer in the name of righteousness. Of course, if she actually is related to it, then please forgive me for not keeping that private when the time comes. The prince nodded repeatedly. She's a good person, she would never do anything like that. However, she's lived in the West Palace for a long time, and her mind is in a bit of a haze. She does inexplicable things at times. Please don't mind her much, Prefect Tang. Tang Fan cupped his hands. Don't worry, your highness. I will take my leave. He withdrew a few steps, then turned to go. Wait. The crown prince shouted, chasing after him with quick steps. Tang Fan turned, not sure what he wanted. Prefect Tang, you just said, that in this world, no one should get retribution for good deeds. I like that phrase and think that you make a lot of sense. Will there be another chance for you to enter the palace later on? I want to speak with you some more. The man smiled. That isn't something this humble subject can do of my own accord. However, His Highness has many talents gathered at his side, and they are all men of knowledge and skill greater than I am. My negligible self really shouldn't be anything to your eyes. The prince gave a tiny smile, too. His delicate face didn't resemble Chenhua's much. Tang Fan guessed that he probably looked more like his deceased mother. You are too modest, Prefect Tang. I've heard of you before. An imperial honorate in the 11th year of Chenghua, yes. I read your essay, too. It was written quite well. Thank you for the praise, Your Highness. If I have a chance later on, I'll be sure to come pay my respects to you. The Crown Prince nodded. All right, I'll be waiting. I also request that you discover the murderer, so that Xiao Zhao's soul in the heavens can be assured. Tang Fan cupped his hands. This subject will do all that I can. He wasted no more time, coming out of the palace of celebrating humanity and busily going for an audience with Chenghua. His Majesty was typically fine with just muddling through major events in court politics, but this case was of major concern. The goal of the true killer behind the scenes was unknown and the manner of Han Zhao's death was bizarre, which incited a lot of his interest. Once he heard that there was progress made, he quickly agreed to an audience with Tang Fan. In spite of that, Tang Fan still had to wait outside for ages before he was allowed in. Upon seeing him, Tang Fan did not have the appearance of a minor official graced by royal countenance who was so excited and of a mind to try currying a favor. Instead, he directly reported the matter at hand. The cause of Han Zhao's death had certainly already been reported to Jinyiwei by the people from Western Depot while he was visiting the Crown Prince, so Tang Fan only briefly mentioned it. After which he jumped into explaining his own analysis, as well as requesting that some areas in the palace be opened to him so that he could investigate them. In reality, this was only for the sake of going to question the deposed empress but was being hindered by Consort Wan's hatred of her. If she knew that Empress Wu had once helped the crowned prince and he had been sending someone to sneakily visit her, she would definitely take retaliatory measures against her. Since Tang Fan had promised the crowned prince that he wouldn't expose Lady Wu, he had to do things in a roundabout way. Chenghua had an acquired fear due to how Deist Li managed to spy on the inner palace and attempted to take his life some years back. When hearing of Han Zhao's death, his first reaction was to infer that the assassin was going for the crowned prince's life or possibly even himself. It was without much hesitation that he agreed to Tang Fan's request, but in light of the fact that Tang Fan was not an inner palace official, Chenghua stipulated that he must be accompanied by a eunuch when he goes around the inner palace and would need prior notice to enter certain areas within the inner palace. Tang Fan obviously had to agree to all that. By the time he got out of the palace after that set of complications, the sky was already near dark. The pitiful Master Tang had been completely busy running about all day, not even getting the chance to eat any meals. With his lowly official's post, even if he was on a royal assignment, he didn't receive the treatment of being served food in the palace. If he were a major scholar of the cabinet or employed by one of the 6 ministers, he definitely wouldn't have been treated like this. Yet, despite him foaming at the mouth with hunger, he didn't go slip away to find food but instead went to the Western Depot first. That was because when he left in the morning, Han Zhao's corpse had still been lying there. Bian quickly came over after hearing that he had returned. When did General Sui Beihu left? Tang Fan asked him. Soon after you did. Later, he sent someone over to tell me to inform you that there was an urgent case in the Jinyiwei and that he was going on a faraway trip. It will probably take several days to half a month, so you don't need to wait for him. Tang Fan sighed. This wasn't really a good time for him to be away. Where am I supposed to find such a cooperative and understanding companion to help me out in such short notice? Don't I still exist? That voice belonged to the great Ming's very own director of the Western Depot, the eunuch Wang Ji, who had just pushed the door open and was coming inside. Tang Fan was pretty much speechless. This man really liked hanging around. You must be busy with official business, eunuch Wang. Why would you especially come and accompany me? Oi! Am I seeing that you're not too happy about this? Aren't you wanting to go into the palace for investigations? His Majesty is having me keep an eye on you so you don't go where you shouldn't. Do you think Sui Guangchuan could follow you all around the palace? What kind of place is it? He may be a relative of the Empress Dowager, but his face isn't that much of a big deal there. Wang Zhi laughed at him. In contrast to his caution and respect in front of the emperor, he had no use for politeness when he spoke to Tang Fan. What? Is being accompanied by me that displeasing to you? You've received a blessing that everyone asks for but doesn't get. Do you know how many people want to see me and can't? Unlike the dark clothes and plain cap from last time at Jinyiwei restaurant, Wang Zhi was currently wearing his imperial granted fee robes. Its style was similar to the Jinyiwei's uniform, but the pattern was different and the degree of importance plus the represented rank also differed. These robes were incomparably gorgeous. Eunuch Wang stood in front of Tang Fan with his hands behind his back, swaying like a fancy peacock. From this point forward until the case is concluded, I'm going with you. If there's anything that needs to be done, I'll send the order down. The efficiency of the Western Depot is much higher than that nuisance of a Jinyiwei, Sui Guangchuan. He's a mere Beihu, for that matter. Don't you worry, I won't get in your way. Since you were handed full authority of this case, you have the full power to make the decisions. With everything that had come out from Wang Zhi's mouth, what else could Tang Fan even say? The palace gates are now close. I'm not anxious to go investigate for the time being, so I'm obliged to leave it for tomorrow, he could only answer helplessly. Wang Zhi mned. Noticing that he still wasn't leaving, Tang Fan inquired, have you eaten already, Eunuch Wang? Yes. What is it? Do you want me to treat you to something? That's not happening. I've skipped 2 meals. If you don't hate the idea, you can come with me for a meal. Tang Fan had been thinking that Wang Zhi would inevitably fling his sleeves out and leave because of that, but the director Eunuch Wang actually just changed his clothes, even giving him a set of casual robes and allowing him to change as well. After that, he followed him all the way from the Western Depot to the wonton stall in the north of the city. By the time Wang Zhi had sat down on a stool next to him, Tang Fan was still feeling a bit of disbelief. He was not afraid of him but also wasn't sure why the magnificent Western Depot director, an arrogant figure that normally opposed the 6 ministries and cabinet, now somehow had the free time to eat wontons with him in this humble place, resisting all attempts to drive him away. Did Eunuch Wang take the wrong medicine today? What's more was that Master Tang, who was expressing that he wasn't at all familiar with Wang Zhi, felt awkward being followed by an imperial eunuch like this. He had been wanting to pass into a bookshop along the way to see if there were any new books, but how could he go and do that now? Being hand in hand with an imperial eunuch while checking out romance stories, wouldn't a world like that be a bit too fantastical? What are you staring at me for? Do you not want to treat me to dinner? Don't forget that I had treated you before at Jinyiwei restaurant. The price of 1 dish alone there is enough for you to buy 100 bowls of wontons here. Tang Fan felt powerless. Please, go ahead and order what you'd like to eat, Eunuch Wang. This humble official will be beyond happy to treat you. There. That isn't so bad, but couldn't you have done any better than this? It's just wontons. Wang Zhi grumbled. You've really got it wrong there, Eunuch Wang. The owner here is famed for making wontons, but his noodles in broth are also good. The long-simmered bone broth in particular is really beyond compared. Jinyiwei restaurant might not even have his sort of attentiveness. They opened this as a family shop, the boss's wife is in charge of rolling and pulling noodles and the boss is in charge of wrapping wontons, but now that it's gotten so late, they're probably sold out of noodles. There might be leftover wontons, still. If you have the chance to try the bone broth wontons with sprinklings of cilantro and sesame, you have to do it. When speaking of food, Master Tang was bound to list them off like he was listing off family heirlooms. The stall's business was indeed robust. They had only just sat down and the proprietress came over and cleaned off the dishes left behind by the customers before them. This was in regards to Master Tang being one of their regulars. Do you want the usual, Master Tang? And what will this other customer have? The proprietress greeted with a smile. Tang Fan smiled back. You're so unkind to me, miss you. It's obvious that only wontons are left, so why bother asking us what we want? She playfully reproached him and said, "You're accusing me unfairly, Master Tang. We made too many noodles today and there's still some left, plus newly fried yubbing. Would you like some of them as well?" I do. 4 yubbing, he answered in a rush. He turned to ask Wang Ji, "Do you want wontons or noodles?" Wang Ji was slightly caught off guard. "Wontons, then." Tang Fan went back to the proprietress. 1 bowl of wontons, 1 bowl of wonton noodles and extra cilantro. Got it? She smiled again, casually poking fun at him. "Master Tang, you've really got a lot of friends from the Jinyiwei. That one time, it was Master Xue and after that was Master Sui. YBE you got another new person this time." He lightly coughed. "I'm not giving you oldies canvases for business, but he isn't from the Jinyiwei. He is Master Wang of the Western Depot." When doing business in the Imperial City, information about everyone of importance was a bit rampant. In the whole of the Western Depot, there was only one person surnamed Wang. Upon hearing the title, the woman went blank, after which her face immediately became indescribable. Shivering out a Master Wang, the soles of her feet seemed to instantly get smeared with grease and she vanished along with her cleaning rag. Before they had even fully settled in, 2 bowls of wontons in broth and 4 large yubbing were carried over to them. The portion sizes looked to be 20% bigger than usual. Tang Fan had to smile. Seems like Master Wang's reputation has the power that quakes the 4 seas. Even a wonton stall gives you more to eat? Wang Ji snorted. Seems like when I'm with you, I have to watch out lest my name got used to show off and scam people. Whenever other civil officials saw him, they all trembled in fear or were immediately on guard. Tang Fan was the sole exception to that. He spoke with wit and unconventional words, teasing when he could. It was never disrespectful, instead making one feel extraordinarily amicable and happy. People like Wang Ji that had stayed in high positions for a long time were arrogant to their cores. When others treated him reverently, he didn't regard them as much. But if they were like Tang Fan's, he felt it was quite a novelty. Tang Fan grinned and pushed the plate of yubbing in front of him. Right when he was about to say something, other people came up on their other side. Seeing as all the tables were filled up yet these 2 alone still had 2 seats remaining, they thus stepped forward and sat down without asking. Wang Ji glared. "Are you blind? There's still people sitting here." The other chortled. "You're pretty arrogant. Is your name written on this table so that we can't sit on it? Do you not know who we are? They're done for." Master Tang lowered his head and sipped the broth, silently observing a moment of silence for the other party. End chapter.